important to our community, and thank you for being here. I'm Joyce Bullock. Welcome. And tonight's forum is sponsored by the Salina Area Chamber of Commerce and the Salina League of Women Voters. It features candidates for Salina City Commission and USD 305 board candidates. Printed profiles by the Chamber and League of Women Voters on all the candidates are in the back of the room on that table right back there where Sandy is, if you would like to pick up a copy. And we do want to apologize. We have misspelled Mark's name on the cover. We put an extra R. So if I call you Brande,
I've been called worse.
okay, let's go ahead and clarify that. So if you'd like to pick up one of those packets, they are in the back of the room. Sandy, do we still have plenty back there? If you want one actually and would like to raise your hand, I'll bet Sandy would probably bring you one. Okay. You can also go to the Salina Chamber's website and also see the candidate information, and the League of Women Voters website as well at lwvsalina.org, and the county clerk's office and the Salina Public Library. So don't say we didn't try really hard to get the information out. So the first session will feature the candidates for the USD 305 school board. And our candidates are Mark Bandre, Scott Gardner, Dana Casso, nailed it, Alan Litton, Roy B. Miller Jr., Corey Sherman North, and Ann Zimmerman. And there are 4 open seats for USD 305's school board this year. And on my left is my good friend Margaret Wyatt from the Salina League of Women Voters. She's my partner tonight. And Margaret will review the rules, because I'm not the rules person, I'm just the friendly person. So rules are what Margaret does. So Miss Margaret, the rules. Okay, the rules it is.
Okay, everything is 1 minute. We begin with 1 minute opening remarks, which I will moderate. Oh, pull it down, yes. We've got a tall person and a medium person here. Is that good? Yeah. All right, we begin with 1 minute opening remarks, which I will moderate. Candidates will alternate, we'll go down the row, and then we'll start all over again. After the opening remarks, we will have questions from the media panel. Joyce will moderate that. We'll do that until 6:40. In the meantime, the audience should be thinking of questions and writing them on the little pads with the little pencils that are on the seats. And people will come around and gather those up, and then a group of folks in the back will look at them, combine them, figure out what we can use, and send them up. And I will then moderate written questions from the audience until about 7:15. Questions should pertain to all candidates. All candidates will be asked to answer each question. Candidates will have 1 minute to answer the questions, and after that, I think I said we stopped at 7:15. Then we have 1 minute closing remarks, which Joyce will moderate. Questions? I do want to introduce our timekeepers, Bruce Wyatt and Diana Tarver. Here is what they're going to do. They have 3 colors: green, yellow, and red. When your minute starts, Diana will hold up the green flag after 40 seconds, the yellow after a minute, the red, and the timekeeper will say stop. Okay. Shall we start with the opening remarks? Mark Bandre?
You want us to pass the microphone down? Is that...
Yes. Yes.
And I assume it's on, everybody can hear all right? All right, ready to start, ma'am? Folks, as they said, my name is Mark Bandre. It's an honor to have the chance to run for school board. My wife and family and I have lived in Salina for 6 years. We're newcomers, obviously. Although we lived in Lindsborg in the early 90s, and my wife taught at USD 305 back in those years. She and Lynn Exline were first-year teachers together, so a lot of memories in that regard. I'm running for school board because I believe it's important to return to the gifts you have to your community. Again, we've lived in a lot of places, but Salina is where we are now, and I want to help do things for the community. I've really valued the school board the last 2 years. I think our current school board has done a tremendous job. I want to keep that rolling. As far as my personal background, I've spent 31 years working in education, all at private colleges, 4 of them in Kansas, 2 in Ohio, one in Ohio, 1 in Arkansas. I'm a director of financial aid and registrar at Bethany currently, and I feel like with all those years of working in private colleges, I just have a lot of skills that would help benefit the school board, a lot of knowledge about education. So I appreciate the chance to be here, would appreciate your vote on November 5th, and look forward to the opportunity.
Scott Gardner.
Well, I want to thank everybody for coming out. I'm Scott Gardner, grew up here as a small child, moved here from Kansas City. I am a product of USD 305. My kids are products of USD 305, and I've got grandkids that are beginning their journey through USD 305. So I graduated from here, went to college, football scholarship, and got a degree there, came back, got 2 degrees, master's degrees from Kansas Wesleyan, and I have 5 certifications to go along with that. And I think that the thing that I can do for the school board is add another level of knowledge and bring something to enhance what's already there. So I don't come in with any preconceived ideas or notions. I'm just coming here and trying to help. So appreciate your vote.
Dana Cosmo.
Good evening. My name is Dana Casso, and my husband and I have been residents in Salina for 25 years. We have 3 children who attended and graduated from USD 305. Another side note is I come from a civic-minded family. My dad was a city councilman for 32 years, and he showed us the value of getting involved and staying involved. Throughout my children's education, I was a very active parent. I was on the PTA, I was PTA president, I was on every site council at all 3 schools. I was a part of the focus groups in our schools, and I helped start the school marathon program at Meadowlark Ridge Elementary. I believe it's very important to be active in your children's education and lives. I believe that if I'm going to do something civically, this is exactly where I should be, as on the school board.
Alan Litton.
I'm Alan Litton. I've been here for 10 years. Moved here from Hayes. I served on the Hayes City Commission for 2 years. And one of the reasons why I am running is because I believe that you should be active in your community. And currently I serve as a captain at the Kansas Highway Patrol Training Academy. So I got out of, for 16 years I was a teacher in Mineola, Kansas. And so I was a teacher, and then I had a midlife crisis and joined the Kansas Highway Patrol. So, but anyway, I've been involved in education. I've been involved in the schools here I've been a guest speaker in the schools, and I believe in education, and I believe we're going on the right path. I just want to make sure we keep going that way. Thank you.
Roy Miller.
I'm Roy Miller Jr., retired and retarded. Supposed to be a joke. Anyway, this is my first time trying to do something like this. I just got concerned about the infiltration of biased teaching in schools, where they're teaching children things that I don't think they should be teaching. I also got involved with bullying, transgenderism, and political correctness. My son suggested that I do this, and so that's why I'm here, trying to do something to take and hopefully make some changes.
Corey Sherman North.
Thank you. As a mother of 6, now ages 34, down to a Lakewood 13, I've navigated 4 different states' school systems over that many years, marveling at the teachers' dedication to seeing my children thrive. So I do feel it's my turn to give back to my own school system and my own community. I think I can bring my research and writing skills as an art historian to the school board table, along with almost 4 years' experience serving on the board of directors for the state's Kansas Museum Association. I've learned how boards best function to steward policy changes and legislative advocacy, and also how to manage an annual budget. I do hope to contribute to USD 305.
Ann Zimmerman.
My name is Ann Zimmerman. I am the president of the school board. I've been on the school board a little more than 4 years. I'm the only one of the 4 board members whose terms are ending who is running for re-election. I grew up in Salina. I went to Hughesner and on up through South High, and I got an excellent education. I went on from there to get an elementary education degree from Kansas State in Manhattan, and I had a short career as a teacher in Kansas City, Kansas. Eventually, I went on to get a law degree at Harvard Law School, and I came back to Kansas. First in Wichita, practicing law there, and then in Manhattan, and then back to Salina. My focus is on mediation, helping people to resolve their conflicts. Salina schools can always get better, and right now I think the school board is working together exceptionally well, and I want that to continue. I hope you'll vote for me and for the 3 other best candidates.
Okay, now to the media panel.
I wanted to mention, if you guys want to take those mics out of the stand and pass them, it'd probably be a lot easier. You do not have to leave them in the stand, if you would like to take them out.
Seems to be working pretty well.
Okay, totally your call, whatever you're more comfortable with. I'd like to introduce our media panel. We have Leslie Eichelberry from Eagle Media, Todd Pittenger, Rocky M Radio,
And Charles Rankin from the Salina Journal. And then we should have, we'll do questions from the audience a little bit later, but right now we're going to start with the media questions.
If you have written a question down, would you please raise your hand so that we'll come and pick up your question? There we go. And keep your hand up until we get those collected, please. Fantastic. So we will actually start, you're sitting incorrectly, by the way, because now it doesn't match.
We're just sitting where our name.
Ideal. So I'm going to do my best to keep it fair. But so we will start with Todd Pittenger. Remember, your questions have to be aimed at every single candidate. And we will start with Mark at the end of the table. So Todd, you go first.
Thanks mainly to the voters of Salina and Saline County, most of the people in here. We have some of the best facilities in the state for our schools, for our children to be successful. My question is, how do we know that our children are successful? How do we judge that? Is it by a standardized test or what? How do the citizens know out there that we're being good stewards of our schools, doing what we're supposed to do, making our children successful?
Thank you, sir. From the point of view of the school board, there's multiple ways we have to look at that question.
One, certainly mentioned standardized tests. Those types of things are important. I mean, the State Board of Education requires the administration to monitor such things. Full disclosure, my wife is the district reading instructional specialist for USD 305. She spends a lot of time monitoring how successful our students are at reading. So we have to do those things, and Salina is quite successful in those regards. It's certainly a credit to the administration and the teachers, without a doubt. The other thing we can do, and this is part of my goal in this process, is looking at our students being successful contributors to our community. Whether they stay in Salina or wherever they go, I want our students to be successful in their educational aspirations, whether they choose to go to a 4-year college, a 2-year college, a technical school, pursue the military, apprenticeship, whatever it is they want to do. I want our schools to prepare those students. I think they do. I want our students to be competent contributors to society. So that's 2 ways of monitoring that success.
Ditto. No, I think I would agree a lot with what Mark said. For me personally, it's all about goals, ambitions, and dreams. And so each kid is going to be different. And if we take the time to understand what's important to that child, what's important to their parents as far as the parent understanding and making sure that they felt that their child got a good education, I think that's what's important. So I think we just have to find out what's important for the kid and then show them the options that are available for them and then strengthen them, equip them, and then let them go.
We are absolutely blessed by the beautiful facility that we do have. And I do think our children are appreciative of that and are taking better care of the schools since we've updated them. I know our teachers feel blessed to be teaching in such beautiful facilities too. They always were wanting our children to succeed, but I think it's even more exciting watching that our community gave money and backed our school system. There's always benchmarks, and it changes. I think Kansas Can 5 is what we're looking at now, and we are always doing testing. We're always measuring our children. Graduation rate is one way you can tell. We're at 88.3%, I believe. And that's a good number. I think Lynette Line told me she wants 100%. So maybe when we get there, we'll know for sure we're doing a good job. But I believe our school system is doing an excellent job.
Mark, you got the answer first. You took the words out of your mouth. That's okay. Seriously, again, like Dana just said, graduation rate. I think we need to make sure we have good citizens coming out of our schools. So when they get out into the real world, they are productive citizens. But I like to see our school again. How we graduate, where they go on from there. Can they go to a 2-year school? Can they go to a 4-year school? Can they go get a job right away? And that's the biggest thing is, do they come back here and are they successful in our city? So, but there's lots of ways we can look at that. But again, graduation rates, and I hate to say it, tests, but sometimes standardized tests aren't a real way of looking at that. But again, I think that I want to be good citizens.
You're taking the words right out of my mouth. Every one of them, gee whiz. Because I have to agree with every one of them. And that's not the only thing I've got to say. We do have good schools, and we have good teachers, and we have good students.
Of course, I agree with everyone who's already said some very fine words about our school system. We have measurables and immeasurables to consider. The standardized testings that kids have to go through quite regularly. There's other things like parent involvement. We have a very high level of parent involvement, which does help to get our kids learning what they need to.
We do want to have successful students, and we want them to be successful citizens and successful adults. The Kansas Department of Education has given us 5 standards that we have to measure. And the first one is kindergarten readiness, which is hard for us to control, but we're trying to make connections there because of the kids behind in kindergarten and they have trouble catching up. The second is social emotional learning, so that you have good soft skills and ability to manage yourself when you get out. And every high school kid now has to have an IPS, an individual plan of study, so they help focus themselves on the things they need to get to do after high school. And then we have the graduation rate. We also have to monitor post-graduation success 2 years out, so we keep track of the kids much longer than we used to. So those are all measurable things. Thank you.
Charles, you're up.
Well, thanks again for having us here. One thing that I really appreciated in the short time I've been here is the partnerships that the school, the district has had with some of the community organizations, with Salina Tech, with Kansas State Polytech, with various organizations around the city and around the community. So what are some current partnerships that you would like to see continue, would like to see grow? And also, what are some other partnerships within the community that you feel like should be developed?
Actually, since I'm not on the school board, I don't know all of the partnerships that they have, so I can only tell you that what we're doing, I think, is working. But we also have to be cognizant and understand that there's so much more that we can do. And so we have to push that envelope. And what I mean is, I used to be a consultant, and one of the biggest problems that businesses are having are with the children who are choosing not to go to college. But when they're coming out of high school, they're not skilled so that they can actually go to work. And so I think we actually have to continue, and I know the chamber has done this. They've reached out to local businesses to try to understand what it is that they need. And I think that we have to build on what's already there and identify that so that we can better equip those children who are graduating to have that job and to have those businesses be able to hire qualified applicants straight out of high school.
Am aware of some of the partnerships with the Salina Area Technical College. I know Salina Regional Health Center and the schools work together for internships. The CNA program that is fairly strong in our high schools, which I think is an outstanding program. We are beefing up our culinary program. I would assume Phillips has some kind of relationship with us. I don't know exactly what they do, but I would assume they do. One of the things I heard about this year that I wasn't aware of was that we also offer fire and safety and police. And they actually come to the school and they teach the children, and they come out ready to take that next step and go on and further their education. And to me, that is a gift we're giving our children. We're not just saying you need to learn English, math, and science. We're actually teaching them the skills. Anything we can bring into our schools to help them gain a better, stronger life after high school is only going to help us move forward.
Yeah, I was going to talk about the police and fire. I serve on the advisory board at Salina Tech with, along with Lynn and there are several others, firemen and police. That is a very good program. That is something that, of course, is dear to my heart, but also that gives them, the kids another opportunity to see how a fireman's job is and what a police officer does or whatever in law enforcement. Again, I think there's other things we could do. I don't know about the mental health part of it. We need probably have a little bit of we have a lot of kids with mental problems, or not mental problems, but anxiety, whatever. We can maybe team with some mental health experts on that. But I think anything we do, we got to make sure it's for the kids. Whatever we can do to help the kids out. So, thank you.
Everything's already been said.
When we moved to Salina about 7 years ago, what really impressed us was Salina has its own arts and humanities. And then, when our kids started school, come to find out there's a lot of collaboration. And the kids, for instance, just finished the 7th grade culture crawl where the entire 7th grade came downtown, visited all our cultural landmarks, and it's part of a really well-rounded life here. And I'd certainly like to see that continue.
We do partner with the Salina Area Technical College. The students can take classes for free, certain numbers of classes. And really, I don't know all the details on that, but we also have pathways in the high schools where your student gets to choose what a pathway to be on and take advantage of classes lined up in the fire and safety and the health services, the food services. I think there's, public service and maybe construction science. We do lots of arts in the schools through the Salina Arts and Humanities Foundation. I get to be a teaching artist that way. I'm a singer-songwriter, so I sing about 60 times in the schools. We also are trying to have better partnership with the community in general, and we're going to start working on our strategic plan this year, and we'll have meetings with the community all around the place. So please come out.
I'm particularly pleased with the partnerships that USD 305 has with Salina Tech, with the things these folks have all mentioned. They're the right things to do, and many of them are pretty recent developments.
So I'd like to find ways to keep enhancing them, keep developing them. I've worked with Greg Nichols at Salina Tech for a number of years when I worked at Kansas Wesleyan and currently at Bethany, trying to find those partnerships. Things I think we need to do together at all of our colleges in the area. As we all know, one of the challenges in not only USD 305 but throughout the state is developing prepared teachers. Salina has great teachers, don't misread that in any way. We need to find more though. We need to develop that pipeline. So what can we do as a school board, as a district, to help work with the local schools to develop more teachers? Alan mentioned students coming from mental health. I worry a lot about our students that have mental challenges, whatever they might be, and particularly our students that come from poverty. I don't have any answers right now, but what can we do to make sure those students are better prepared to be successful at their given school day? Whether they're coming hungry or without adequate clothing, what can we do to partner with the community to better serve those students?
Nice. Leslie, please, you're up. And Dana, you're gonna go first.
Thank you. FYI, I am a project of 305 many, many years ago. So anyway, I appreciate y'all having me here. If you, assuming you get elected, okay, you're on the school board, and you could change one thing about the district, what would you change and why?
Okay, that's kind of hard because I don't want to say that I don't agree with the school board that is in place right now. But I was very disappointed that we lost our alternative high school. I feel like this is a very large school district. We have over 7,000 students. We have a very diverse group of students, and we needed that school. I hope that someday we can go back to that or a form of that, but I think that our teachers need to feel that they have that place as an option, and our students need to feel like that is a place for them as well. So.
Thank you, Dana. Good one. I guess one of my things would be recruiting and keeping the best teachers we can here, retaining them here in USD 305. I think I would like to see us and maybe have a recruiter or something like that to go out and look for teachers that the best we can find out in the world. We need to make sure we have a community. Our community is, if we have a good school system, we have a good community. And I think we have a good school system, and we're striving to have a good community. But I think we got to make sure we can get the best teachers here, and we need to be able to pay them and make sure they have a not just pay, but make sure they're appreciated here. It's a big thing to be appreciated. So I thank you for that.
I agree with that. Yep, I really agree with it. But I'm new here to the Board of Education type thing. So I know that they have done their best and have been doing a good job taking care of things. But I was wondering, I do not know if they go to the schools or not to find out what's happening in each school. So that's one thing that I'd like to take and find out about is these candidates here, as well as the ones that are on the board, if they go into schools and find out exactly what's going on in the schools and why, and things of that nature. We've got good teachers, we've got good students, and I believe that we're doing a good job, but I think we can do better. Thank you.
I know that Salina School District is doing an amazing job of coordinating with, I think, 12 other districts for the special education programs. In talking with neighbors, I'm a little concerned about a more recent development to have some of the students that currently are gathered in various schools for various teaching purposes. Kids with autism on the spectrum are gathered and helped by professional experts in the field. And I understand that some of these centralized groupings are going to be split up and have the kids go back to their own home schools, which I am just concerned that we won't have the expertise for each child.
The one thing that I would change would be to have a higher number of staff members, a higher diversity of staff members, people of color. Some of the wonderful staff people that we had who were African American moved away. We have about maybe 15 to 20% of our students that are Hispanic or African American, and they need to be able to look up and see people who have accomplished things that look like them. And we need to recruit more teachers of color. which of course is a challenge just to get teachers, the number of teachers you need, but we need to work on getting a more diverse faculty.
It's a complicated topic, obviously. And for me, what I would love to find a way to do is somehow enhance teacher compensation. And that's not a new topic, I realize. It's something Lisa Peters and others have worked on for some time. But part of the reason we struggle to recruit and retain quality teachers is they can make more money somewhere else. So what can we do to think creatively? I mean, I don't have the answers now because I'm not privy to all the budget details, but could we find ways, for example, to reduce how much each teacher has to pay towards insurance? Are there ways to be creative out there? My wife, my mother, my sisters-in-law, and a lot of teachers in my family, all teachers, at least the ones I've worked with, contribute things out of their pocket to help their classrooms. They're spending money of their own to help make the classroom go better. Can we do something with daily budgets to relieve some of that stress from students? So I don't have all the perfect answers, but enhanced teacher compensation would be my goal.
I think there's actually two things that I would look at. One would be compensation for the teachers and the staff. My daughter was a teacher. That's what she dreamed of doing. She came back, she taught at Head Start, and then she taught kindergarten, and now she's going to school to be a nurse because she couldn't make enough money teaching. So personally, that's a problem. And it's a problem that we need to face and deal with. Secondly, if it wasn't for sports, I wouldn't have gone to college. So I got a free education because I could carry a football. And so I think one of the things that we have to do is do a better job of allowing our kids to get the opportunity for those who need it to get a scholarship to go to college. College is extremely important. I don't care how you get there as long as you get there. That's the important thing. And every young kid I find, I tell them, well, they might say, I don't want to go to school. I say, go to college. I don't care if it's just for a semester. Get the experience. There's something to be learned there, and I think that we need to do whatever it is that we can to give every kid the opportunity to go to school, because some schools are very expensive.
Okay, Todd.
I know everyone, when they send their kids to school today, they want to know that their child is safe at school. And heck, my wife's a teacher. I want to know that she's safe when she goes to school every day. School violence is a problem, at least it's a perceived problem across the country. Now, I believe our schools are gun-free zones with the exception of the school resource officer. Would you be in favor or allow teachers that want to go through the training and conceal and carry in their classroom?
Todd? Right, I am. No, I am not for a teacher carrying a gun. And I know that might sound silly coming from a cop, but no. And the reason why is because when you carry a gun, you have to be really trained. I'm trained really well. Our troopers are trained really well. And to take a life, you have to be able to take a life. The other thing would be, the problem would be, is how you can conceal that gun. How, if something would happen in the school, we'd have an issue and somebody would be coming out and a teacher would come out and we have a law enforcement person there and they see that teacher with a gun, guess what's going to happen? Bad things can happen. I do not believe that we need. We have school resource officers in the building. That's what we need. I cannot believe that we would have anybody in that school, a teacher, make them or have them carry a gun, because the training is enormous. I can tell you that, speaking from experience. Thank you.
Very well said. But I believe that if a teacher wants to carry a gun, get the training to be able to have a gun, because you can't throw stones at somebody. You have to have something to help prevent something happening. School resource officer can't be everywhere at one time. So, like I say, if a teacher wants to carry a gun, make sure that they have the training, the experience, and the qualifications to be able to carry one.
I think teachers should absolutely not have guns in our schools. As a parent, I would be so worried every single day that accidents will happen. They have across the country. We've had guns go off in schools, hitting ceilings. We've had guns left in bathrooms. Any student could carry off a gun and perhaps use it unwisely. And the teachers are just not trained, as Alan points out. You need to be trained to act in appropriate ways with weaponry. And our children are already being traumatized. Studies are coming out that just doing the active shooter drills are starting to affect our kids.
I think we should all defer to Alan Litton on this. I wonder what teachers would do with if they had a gun, where are they going to keep it all day? I mean, if you're in school, kids are nosy, they get into things, and also, I think it was Alan who said if a law enforcement officer is in a school looking for an active shooter and sees a person come out the door with a gun, that's a split-second decision that you don't want a law enforcement officer to have to make. Is that the bad guy, or is that the teacher trying to help things out? I think our teachers need to teach and not to use their guns to try and protect somebody. Thank you.
This week I was in Billings, Montana for a conference related to my work, and it turns out that on Monday there was such an incident in the schools. But the end result was 2 young men brought airsoft guns to school with them, and apparently every policeman in town was at the high school, which causes other problems. But I do not want our teachers to be armed, and the reason why is the accidents others have pointed out. There's too much risk involved. Our teachers need to teach. We need to find other ways to worry about safety. Todd, earlier you spoke about the great job we've done as a community improving our school buildings. Part of that is improving the entrances to each of the elementary schools, so they're much more secure that way. Those are steps in the right directions where we can empower the schools, empower our parents, the watchdog sorts of parents that are there in the mornings to make those things be successful. So again, the billing situation brought home for me that there are many other issues involved. We don't need our teachers on.
Like Alan, I was a former law enforcement officer, and unfortunately there were some officers I wasn't comfortable being around that had a gun. So, to be honest with you, just because they got the uniform on, mentally, are you prepared? And that's something that's extremely difficult to teach. So, no, I would not like to have a teacher with a gun, even if they've gone through their 4 or 5 hour training, because you know they're not going to be like they're at an academy. The other thing is, I would say we have to prevent the gun from getting into school. Prevention. It's the same thing in law enforcement. It's all about making yourself visible to prevent the crime from occurring. That's what we want to do. We want to keep it from occurring. We don't want to react to it.
And I agree that our teachers should not have yet another thing on their shoulders of carrying a gun to school. However, I think we do have some options, and I think it is happening in our school district. Our schools become small communities, and these children, when they're brought together and when they have leadership in their school, they will look out for themselves. And so we need to encourage those small communities. We need to encourage the conversation between the children. We need to encourage the children to break the code of silence. They're scared, and we need to allow them to come to us and be open and honest and listen to our children. I also think I spoke to Mrs. Exline because my children are a product of this situation. Since my children were in school, we've handled it several different ways. Now we have the run, hide, and counter, and we've left it up to our teachers to make the best decision for the students in their classroom at the time.
I'll just throw in real quick. My wife's father was the commander of the Kansas Highway Patrol. She grew up around guns. She doesn't want a gun in her classroom.
Thank you. Thanks to the media panel. We are now going to take your questions, and Miss Margaret will be in charge of sorting through those.
Okay. I have a number of questions screened by our people in the back, and I believe we're starting with Roy Miller. First question is, why do you perceive, sorry, the medium person is supposed to put this down. What do you perceive the 2 greatest problems in our district?
Since I'm not on the school board at the present time, I really can't give you an answer on that. I don't, I'd have to be on the school board in order to answer that question properly.
I believe that truancy and absenteeism is a problem in the school district that we'd like to improve. in asking Superintendent Exline the question, what's the biggest challenge? She feels that we need more faculty for special education and those programs.
I think we need to work on graduation rates. We need to make sure that, well, get as close to 100% as possible. We're not there yet, and that means working way back down the line, starting in kindergarten and all the way up, and making sure the social emotional learning happens, and make sure the trauma in the child's past is dealt with. The other issue is equity issues, which is related to that, but we are finding that the new Equity Council is meeting and putting together statistics and finding that different groups, special ed kids and children of color, are not achieving as high as the white kids, and that is not because they're not as smart, and that is something we need to figure out, and how to ensure success for all of our students.
You know, Scott mentioned his educational use earlier. I've been fortunate to earn a master's degree in management and a doctorate in educational leadership, and the skills learned in those has taught me how to help analyze some of the data, some of the things that are out there. Well, I haven't yet had opportunity to do extensive analysis of USD 305 data on these things. I think two key pieces that we need to work on are ways we can recruit substitute teachers. Right now it's a challenge when our teachers need to be out, whether for illness or for training of their own. It's hard to find quality people to fill those seats, and that lessens the quality of education that's going on. I also think the impact that students in special education situations that are behaviorally challenged, the disruption they bring to the classroom presents real problems for learning for all, certainly them themselves, but others that aren't causing problems. So what things can we do to enhance training, to enhance skills that improve some of those sorts of situations that are out there?
Based upon the people that I spoke with, funding for special education is an area of concern. And as we've talked, salaries for our teachers and our staff is the other area of concern.
I agree with what everyone said, but I have two things that are not huge items, but they're certainly items that I feel are important. And the first one is a good source of communication. I'm not sure we have found that yet. When I bring up Peach Jar, nobody knows what it is. It's a form of communication with our parents where we get flyers and we can look online and we can find things. And a lot of teachers and a lot of parents aren't familiar with that system. So I'm not sure our parents are getting the information from the schools that we need. I'm not sure that people are reading the Salina Journal like they used to. So how are we getting communication out to our parents? It's kind of easy in elementary school. It gets much harder with middle and high school. The second thing has nothing to do with the school district at all. It has to do with the parents. And as parents, we've got to step up, we've got to be accountable, and we've got to quit bashing our school and our teachers on Facebook. Nothing irritates me more than that.
Thank you, David. Well, I want to go right in with her. That is something, bashing our teachers. All we're doing is teaching them that it's okay to belittle people, and that is not right. It's not right at all. And that's part of what's the problem with our communities today. I'm sorry, but that's it, and that needs to stop. The other thing is, I think that I don't know if you could, I'm not, because I'm on the school board and I don't know how much money it costs, and have to be able to change it around, but maybe teaching foreign language in grade school, maybe, so we can learn foreign language, because you don't learn foreign language when you're in high school like me. I had 3 years of German and I can't speak any of it. So I can speak a little bit, but not much. But again, I think if you would have some foreign language, maybe start it in the grade school, they could learn it, pick it up, and actually be fluent in it. Thank you.
Our next question. Please describe your level of awareness and concern for our students' struggles with emotional issues and the impact it plays in their ability to learn. Corey Sherman.
Because I have children in the schools, I do feel like I make an effort to be aware of what's going on with their friends. A lot of their friends do have difficulties and are on various medications, and it's a little worrying. So I am aware and concerned, and I hope that we can get more screening for mental illness into our school system and get more help.
I'm involved in a number of things beside the school board and beside my law practice and beside my music in the schools. I work with the Salina Initiative for Restorative Justice, and we do parent-adolescent mediations, among other things. We do also victim offender cases where we work with juvenile offenders who have to we make them sit across from their victims and work out ways to make things right. But the parent-adolescent mediation is one where we run into many social emotional issues that interfere with kids' lives, and we often get these through the truancy program. Now, I don't do them for the Salina truancy kids, but because I'm on the school board. But I also teach Sunday school, and it makes it very hard to teach, even a 45-minute Sunday school lesson when you have kids with emotional issues. So this is very close to my heart.
My wife and I have 2 children. Our oldest son is 25, graduated from Baldwin City High School and then Kansas Wesleyan. The younger son graduated from Salina South and is now a senior at University of the Pacific in Stockton, California. My wife and I were heavily involved in their education. As a parent, I felt if we wanted to make sure they were involved with good coaches, might as well deal with me, so I coached every single sport they did throughout their youth. As a result of that, over the years, I've seen lots of disruptive behavior on basketball court, baseball field, and if they're doing it there with an old guy like me, they're doing it in the classroom too. It's a tremendous disruption, without a doubt. Professionally, again, I've worked for colleges for 31 years. The number of students that we bring into Bethany, and it's not unique to Bethany, but the number of students that come in that have IEPs or 524 plans unique to their educational development background just continues to grow. There's no doubt about the fact there's issues. I alluded earlier to poverty and behavioral issues, social emotional issues. They're there. They are challenges for our teachers. We've got to find ways to help, and I hope to, as school board, be a part of that.
Well, I guess oftentimes we have to say things aren't popular, so this is my time. There's a book that addresses this, and we have to start with a firm foundation. And if we go back and find out where we went wrong, where all of this started to go wrong, I think we can fix it. But you've got to have a foundation. If you don't have a firm foundation, you can be swayed to the left or to the right. The book says, bring up a child in the way he should go, and when he gets older, he won't depart. To me, it's really simple. We got to get back to the basics. We got to get back to teaching kids what they need to know and hold them accountable for what they do.
That was awesome. Actually, I graduated from McCord State with a degree in recreational therapy, and my people were psychiatric unit for youth. It was called Crittenton, and it was a residential facility. So I have a very dear heart for students that struggle. When I volunteered at the school, it wasn't always in my children's class, but it was in the behavior disorder classes at Meadowlark. 1 in 6 children today, ages 2 to 8, are diagnosed with a mental, behavioral, or developmental issue. That's a lot of kids. Kansas is ranked number 8 in the suicide between ages 10 and 19. We've definitely got a problem, and I think our school district is doing an amazing job reaching out. We have a mental health facility from Central Kansas Mental Health in our schools. They're seeing kids at school during their day. We have counselors in every school. We have social workers. I think we're doing a great job. Could we do more? Always. The problem is only going to get worse, but I really appreciate what we're doing already.
I echo that. One thing about, I do have a wife that teaches here also, and I get and a daughter, and they both tell me about the emotional issues they have to deal with. And I think it's unfortunate, but I'm like Scott, we need to start at home. We need to start holding these kids accountable. That would help a lot. We partner with, there's CAPS, that's for child advocacy there here in town that try to teach young mothers how to be good parents. I think that's important. Maybe we could look at that to help with that, but help with our school with that. But again, I think it goes back to accountability. Thank you.
Yeah, accountability. They also have to try to understand the problems some of these parents have at home. When you have two parents working, sometimes the kids just don't have any time with their parents at home. So, and I know I have a niece that have had some problems because she had to work 2 jobs trying to raise her children. So try to understand their problems, hold the children accountable, and also try to keep some of these kids off of the cell phones. Okay?
Okay, here's our next question. Bureaucracy is a terrible drag on education and teaching. What will you do to minimize the impact of bureaucracy on putting money where it belongs, in the classroom? Anne?
We have we have pie charts. We have what we call the apple pie chart, which is an apple divided up into triangles to say how much of our money goes into the classroom. And it's a great majority of the apple. So if you could say that the bus drivers aren't there, but you know, if you can't get the kid to school, you can't get them to learn. But all the teachers, the paras, the janitors that make sure the place is good enough to have a school day. Most of our money does go into the classroom, and there is money that is spent on administration, but that helps to keep things moving and working, and I think we're doing pretty well on that. We could always improve though. Thank you.
Going back to our very first question, we talked about standardized tests and their reality in our society. For better or for worse, bureaucracy is a reality in our society these days, and we're not going to get rid of it by any stretch. What we can do, though, is continue to hire the best people to help administrate it. I appreciate the way Dr. Hardy handled things. I appreciate the way Ms. Exline is handling the staff. We have good people leading the charge here, and we have good teachers. We just need to keep on empowering them to deal with the adversity our society brings. Many of our questions we've dealt with today, even going back to whether we should arm teachers or not, they all deal with politics and bureaucracy and how our society chooses to handle all these different things out there. Again, we need to prepare our students to be confident, competent contributors to society. We need to emulate that at home. And just, again, I appreciate Scott's answer earlier too. It's perfect on those regards. What can we do to help minimize bureaucracy? We're not going to minimize it. How do we deal with it? I think that's the things we can effectively do from the school board.
I think the way we tackle this is we have to understand that bureaucracy exists, as Marcus said, and every business has its challenges. We have to be innovative and find a way to get through this. One of my certificates, I have a black belt in innovation engineering. We got to start thinking differently. And in my current job, the biggest challenge I have is working with adults and trying to teach them to think differently. China's not smarter than us. They think differently. And so all we have to do is learn to challenge what it is that we're doing and understand that the only limits that are placed on us are the ones that we place on ourselves, and the same ones that we place on our kids. We can do anything if we put our minds to it.
I actually think we're doing a really good job. Most of the money we get goes towards our people. 90.5% of the operating budget goes directly back towards our students. I sat down with Lisa Peters because I don't understand a budget this size. And I am blown away by how talented she is at explaining the budget, how much information she must keep and continuously learn about our budget. And I feel like we've got the best person in charge of that to lead us down the way. And so I'm going to follow her lead.
All right. Oh. Okay, bureaucracy, yeah, I know we all know what it is. I think the biggest thing right now, and I think we're doing a good job here at USD 305, is you have good leadership and you can fight through the bureaucracy, and that's about all I have for that, so.
Well, bureaucracy, politics, everything comes into play. Sometimes you have to skim over the politics, get rid of the politics to try to run the school. Sometimes that's kind of hard to do. And hopefully, we can see our way through it.
I don't really have much to add to this question. From what I can see, I'm fairly impressed with the efficiency of the school board in getting things done.
Okay. Mark will start with this one. Would you be willing to reduce funding for athletics and direct it instead to a gifted, talented program?
You know, several years ago, when my son, youngest son, was a freshman, sophomore in school, my son played soccer. He was the goalkeeper on the state championship soccer team, so go Cougars. So athletics is important to me. I mentioned coaching earlier, but my point was back then, students had to pay $100 a year, I think it was a year, to participate in athletics, and that was part of the way we helped balance the budget. That went away recently, and I'm not privy to all the budgetary reasons why, but we need to do both is the bottom line. I think there's very definitely a place for athletics in our community. It helps build community, both at South Central and Sacred Heart for that matter. We need to have those students meet the possibilities. Scott's Athletic Scholarship is one of many. My younger son is a goalkeeper at University of Pacific now. It's part of the way we're paid for it. So those are a place, but my son also has never had a B in his life. He's a 4.0 student in high school and in college. He relies on his South teachers for that. We need to fund the gifted and talented programs too. So no, I would not take one to rob the other, but we're going to have to find a balance to serve both.
I agree, no, I would not take the money away from the athletic programs. No way. I got a free education because of that, so, and my mom couldn't afford to send me to college. I think she may have given me $50 the whole time I was in school, so no, we have to find a way to make it work, and I think that we can.
I agree with Scott, but I also believe that the athletic departments bring some of their own money in. So I don't think we're comparing apples to apples. So I think that both are extremely important. We need to support both, and we just need to keep doing what we're doing right now.
Yeah, you're talking to an old football coach here. So, Scott's right. I saw a lot of kids when I was a teacher that played sports or they were in the band or whatever, and that's the reason why they're there, and they were able to graduate and go on with their lives and become productive citizens. But I think a lot of, and Dana just talked about this a little bit, but fundraising, I think you can have a balance. There's fundraising in your, some of your sports. They do a lot of fundraising, you know, they sell cards for $20 each, you know, we buy that. I think we can support it that way also. But I do believe education is number one, even though I'm an old football coach. Education comes first to me. I can tell you that. But again, sometimes sports is a big thing for schools because it's participation for the kids.
Well, I'm gonna have to agree on that. I never was in athletics when I was at school because I went to so doggone many different schools, being a military brat. But you have to have your athletics because it does bring in the money. But you also have to have the help of the gifted students also. But there's also art and music that should be able to be added to also.
At an earlier forum at the NAACP, one of the audience questions was, why is there not enough gifted programs in the north area of Salina? I'm afraid if it came down to a question of funding and taking money from athletics and moving that to improving the educational opportunities in parts of our town, I would do it.
I don't think we need to have it in either or. It needs to be both. We mentioned bringing in outside money for athletics, which they mainly do for their, well, they do that for their program and the like football program that you get when you go to a game, and they get ads for that. We have declined to take ads for the schools and the classrooms. It didn't seem like a good idea. And so we have to find other ways to get money for our classrooms unless unless funders are willing to give it to us without putting their names on things. But our AP classes, advanced placement classes, they serve as gifted and talented programs, although there's more to gifted and talented programs than AP classes. But there are many ways for the gifted kids to find outlets in our schools.
Scott. Is the USD 305 salary structure top-heavy? If you think it is, what's your remedy?
I have no clue what the structure is. But I would presume unto much is given, much is required. And so they're in the position to do a job, they should be compensated for doing that job.
Yes.
I agree with Scott, and when you think about it, we're responsible for Early Learning Center, 8 elementary schools, 2 middle schools, 2 high schools, and we sponsor with the co-op, Head Start, Salina Adult Education, over 7,000 students, and 3,300 staff. That's a lot, so whoever's in charge of that should be compensated very well.
I agree with that. When you have a good superintendent, you need to pay them because there's a lot of things that they do that we don't even know about. I mean, the problem is the finances, things like that. And if you don't have a very good superintendent, if you don't pay them, you're going to get what you get for the pay. So I'd like to see everybody paid the same. That's not how it is. You have more responsibility. The higher up you go, the more responsibilities you have. And so you need to pay them for that because in the business world, you're going to get paid for doing that job.
I have to agree with that. Just the more responsibility, the more you do, the more you deserve. Just like in your athletics, if you have a bad coach, you're going to get rid of that coach. You have to pay that coach if you want to get a higher amount.
Yes, I believe you do have to pay for expertise, and I certainly would just hope that we can raise the rest of the teachers' salaries to be probably closer.
I know more about the salary schedule for just the teachers, the beginning teachers versus the very experienced teachers than I do about the whole, out of my top of my head, the rest of the salary schedule. But we had a big discussion about the whether we should give an equal percentage to the teachers across the board this year, and we didn't. Well, we were trying to raise the starting salary up to get more good beginning teachers, but we didn't want to take money away from the experienced teachers because they're the experienced teachers, and if they're still here, that probably means they're really excellent teachers. So we try to spread it evenly across the board, but I think more than half our teachers are in the top half of the salary schedule, have a lot of experience.
I do not think our salary structure is top-heavy. I think it's done appropriately. I'm glad Ann brought up the teacher's salary schedule, though. I think there's some ways to tweak that. I'm a little bit biased here. My wife has a doctorate. There isn't a doctoral place on our salary chart. So I think there's ways we could help encourage our teachers to get more education by widening the chart a little bit. And that's where we'll rely on Lisa Peters, who is appropriately compensated because of what great work she does. Again, as these folks have said, the more responsibility you have, the more you should make for sure. But do you think there's potentially some tweaking we could do on the salary chart to just enhance education and those things?
Okay. You're passing? You start. Deanna starts this time.
Yeah.
Most citizens have no children in school. How would you propose USD 305 keep them informed and connected to their schools?
I think that's a very important piece of the puzzle, and I do think the communication I mentioned earlier is a key part. We have to get people in our schools. One of the things I'm probably most proud about that I've done here in Salina is started the school marathon program over 16 years ago in our elementary schools. And while the design of that program was not to bring community to the school, it was to get kids running, it actually became a big focus. And now any given fall when you're running around this town and see people out running, you will see grandparents You will see community members. You will see brothers and sisters. And so to me, anything we can do to get the community involved, and they're not always people who have kids in that school. I've seen people and I've spoken with people who love the program so much they go out on their front porches and watch the kids run in the morning. So I think anything we can do to bring community in is, it's what we should be doing. That's the whole idea behind this.
My grandfather, a long time ago, told me, he said, and he didn't have, that's when we were grandkids, whatever, he didn't have kids in school, but he always supported schools. And he said, that's the most important thing you can do, because that's your future. The kids coming out of there are the future of our communities. And I think the school does a good job. They have a newly updated website here that people can get on and they can find out what's going on in the school. So I think that's a good thing. So there's ways we can promote ourselves, and we need to bring in the people that don't have kids in school, but they're still important. This is the community. It's everybody, not just the parents doing it. So we can all help do that. Thank you.
Football, baseball, all school activities. If you advertise them out to the communities, out to the businesses, then hopefully you'll probably be able to get more out of the community. Because a lot of these people will follow the activities of the football and the baseball. And of course, you have these guys that go out there and they hurrah for the Cougars, and you have to have the other team.
Wouldn't it be nice if on the front page of the journal, there was a section for school system news? Regularly, at least once a week, and not just the special events, the everyday things. We could also do that perhaps on the radio. Regular little school corner.
I think we need to emphasize to the community what a value a good school system is to the community, whether or not you have kids in the schools. I don't have kids, but if our schools weren't any good, young families wouldn't move to town, and those families keep the businesses strong. They buy things, and they work places, and they grow the businesses in both of those ways, by spending and by working. They help the economy. They make us more active and less a growing older and older community. We need to fight the brain drain of all the young people leaving, and we need to get them to come back and bring their children with them. And those are all wonderful things for our community, and we need to emphasize that.
By show of hands, how many of you in the room graduated from USD 305? So while folks may, thank you, while folks may not have children in school directly, all of these people that have graduated from school and come back here to be involved are the results of these things. The fact that James Bowden, a USD 305 product, is running for city commission is a testament to these things. But Scott and Leslie are all graduates. The things that we can, and again, all you folks that raised your hand, the more things we can do to trumpet those people's success, the more we can do to help people understand, hey, you may not have your child, your grandchild in our schools, but we're all contributing to the community. This is our plumbers and our electricians. This is our healthcare providers. All these people have the opportunity to be contributors to our society because of the job our school system does. So the more we can trumpet those things, the more we can help people understand that, hey, our schools are making Salina a great place to live. And the kids that are in school now are going to be doing that really soon. We need to just help trumpet that success out there.
I think we have to give everybody an opportunity, let them know that there's an opportunity for them to get involved or stay involved. When I came back from playing football, I started coaching kids to play football, tackle football, flag football at the Y. And the skills that I was taught here carried me through. And so it's just an opportunity for me to give back. And I think that's the way that we keep people involved, is we let them know that there is a place for them to be involved. You know, those who are moving to our city that don't have kids, they don't know how they can get involved. And so I think we just need to let them know that there's an opportunity for them.
We don't really have time for one more question if we all go a minute. So let me suggest to the timekeepers that we do 40 seconds. So 20 seconds on green, 20 seconds on yellow. Alan gets the last question. Do you believe students should help play a larger role in shaping their schools? If so, how?
Yes, I think that we need to keep the lines of communication open to them. We need to make sure that we allow them to have some voice of what kind of classes they would like to take. I mean, we have to teach the core classes, but if they have some input, I'm willing to listen to that. Everybody should be willing to listen to the input from the kids. The kids are why we're here. That's why we open the school door, is for the kids. So they need to have a little bit of input. Sometimes they don't know what's the best for them. I understand that, but again, I think we need to have they need to have a little bit of input, and they need to have buy-in in their schools.
Most definitely. That happened to me in school. I wanted to have a certain class, and they wouldn't let me have it. So, anyway.
I absolutely believe students should have input into their schools and what they do in them. I've spoken to Superintendent Exline about starting kind of a listening forum within the school day, maybe once a week, once a month, just to listen and see what kids are thinking about their classes, their home lives, whatever comes up. I'm very excited to see some South High School students here today getting involved, and I've been invited to speak to their new politics club next week and talk about campaigning and school board issues.
Yes, students should have a voice. I remember being a student and being asked for opinions, and I always kind of wondered what I was doing, but I have more opinions now. But there are students on the Equity Council. There are student members from both the high schools, and there are students on the high school site councils, and there are, and Ms. Exline is talking about starting a student advisory council for herself to keep herself involved in those, or informed about what the students are thinking.
Yes, they certainly should. I assume everybody did, but I received an email earlier this week from the editor of the Salina South newspaper wanting opinions. So I appreciate that. They're reaching out. But by the way, they didn't do that 2 years ago when I ran, so that's a step in the right direction. I know Dr. Stevens at Salina South does a great job asking for student opinion through the student government. I mentioned my older son graduated from Baldwin City High School. We have a lot of connections in Lawrence, where Mr. Brunhardt has just come from. Boy, folks think really highly of him at Salina Central. And here's another Salina success story coming back to help us out. Great things there. I believe those gentlemen are both listening to students. I'm really pleased they are, and hope to keep on doing those sorts of things.
Yes, they should play a role or have a voice. And I think the way we do that is by listening to them and encouraging them to speak and tell us what's on their mind, because that's part of the maturation process.
If you want to know what's happening in your schools, talk to your kids, because they will tell you. And I believe that kids want to tell you what's going on and what they think. When I was growing up, I feel like student council seemed to be a little bit more about the leadership of the school. I'm not so sure that's where we're at today, and so maybe we could work on getting back to a stronger student council in every school where the kids feel like they really do, really true have a voice.
Okay, Joyce will moderate the final remarks, closing remarks.
Again, you have 1 minute, and I think we'll just start with Alan, since we just finished with Dana. Let's just keep rolling, okay?
Well, first of all, thank you for everybody for being here, and thank you for having me here. Every morning, I go to work, and on my desk is this Kansas Highway Patrol core values. There's 10 things here. The first thing on here is integrity. And that is something that I believe in wholeheartedly, and I strive every day to live by integrity. I think it's a very important thing. The other thing is I would like to have your vote on November 5th. I think that it's very important that I will be a good listener. I will listen to both sides of the issues, and I will make an informed decision. Thank you for your time. Oh, sorry.
This is my first time up here trying for a public office here. Don't know if hopefully, I'm qualified for it in some way, but I'm willing to learn. This is the first time in politics, if you can call it politics. And I'm willing to try to do what I can to help out. I'm not a graduate of 305, and I never went to school here. But I had the school of hard knocks there, going around the world and everything else. So I hope that and get a chance to improve something here.
Thank you. I do hope to further the mission of USD 305, providing a high-quality, equitable education for all, applying my current experiences as a parent, as a researcher, and as a board member. My efforts would be focused on how best to offer learning to each and every student to help rise to their potential and participate successfully in our communities.
I want to first thank the League of Women Voters and the Chamber of Commerce. I know exactly how much work it takes to put this on. I am the Vice President of the League of Women Voters, and I'm happy not to be having to do the floor of this year. But thank you for all the work that it takes, and thank you all for coming. I want you to vote for me, Ann Zimmerman, but I also just want you to vote, and I want you to get all your friends and neighbors out to vote, because there's a lot of people who are thinking they're not voting because they don't think it's valuable. I want to mention that on your ballot there's going to be a constitutional amendment, which we can't go into here, but you should get online and figure out what that is, because it might be a surprise to you when you get your ballot, and there it is. So thank you again for coming.
I want to echo the thanks for those that are here today for taking the time to come, and for those that are listening at home as well. I also want to thank Nedra, Gary, and Carol for their time on the school board. In my opinion, they've done a great job, and Ann as well. I believe I'm qualified to serve in this position as someone who sent 2 children through school, who's worked for 31 years, who has a doctorate in leadership positions. I think I've developed the skills over the years to help be a good listener, which is what the school board needs. I believe in collaboration, and we saw a time in the relatively recent past where the school board didn't collaborate all that terribly well. Let's not go back there. Let's make sure we have the best 4 people added to the 3 that are staying, so we continue to work together, work with Ms. Exline and the student body and our teachers to put forth the best possible product we can. I appreciate your vote, and I appreciate you voting for sure on November 5th.
I think we all want you to vote for us, so let's get that out of the way. Well, one thing I want to make clear, I'm a product of USD 305. I went to school at Harpon Elementary School, which is on the north end of town. Nobody had very much. So we learned to work for everything. USD 305 gave me an excellent education. It is a great school district. It's always been a great school district. So let's make sure, even though the questions we've had on how to improve it, it's been great. It is great. We're going to try to make it even better. But what it gave me was a firm foundation educationally. I went to college, and college was easy. It was really easy to me, especially because I only had class on a certain day, and Friday we didn't have class at all. So, I think that the USD 305 has done a great job, has always done a great job, and I think it will continue to do a great job.
I was welcomed to this school district by Marcy Roth, who I adore, and a great staff at Meadowlark Ridge Elementary. I was encouraged to be an involved parent, and I continued that way through my children's K-12 education. I would hope that as a school board member, I would also be welcoming to new community members, new parents, and also be there to help encourage parental involvement. I believe one of my strengths, as many of my friends here would say, is I can get you on board for something. If I want 300 kids to run around the school, I am going to work my tail off to make that happen. So I believe that I could be a person who would hear things and get involved and reach out to the public and communicate those ideas. It's a big election. We have 4 seats open. We're losing some very, very dedicated and longtime school board members. If I'm elected, first, I will be humbled and thankful that you voted for me. Second, I'll be willing to learn from the people who are currently in office, who know what's going on. And lastly, I hope I bring some new energy.
Candidates, thank you for coming. We'll take a break until 7:30.
session 2. Our city commission candidates already have all joined us. We have everybody, right? Thumbs up, yeah, got everybody? Fantastic. We didn't leave anybody in the parking lot. My name is Joyce Fulk. I didn't say this the first time. I'm actually chairperson of the board of directors of the Salina Area Chamber of Commerce, and that's why they let me do this, because, you know, not just because they like me. So we're gonna go ahead and get rolling here. Tonight's forum is, of course, sponsored by the Salina Area Chamber of Commerce and the Salina League of Women Voters. And this session will feature the Salina City Commission candidates. Again, if you weren't here early for the earlier session, we do have printed bios of all the candidates in the back. You can also find the information on the Chamber's website and also the League of Women Voters website as well, at the County Clerk's Office and the Salina Public Library. So we made every effort to make sure you could get the information. So I'm going to actually introduce our candidates at this time. There are 3 open seats for the Salina City Commission. And I'm going to start on the end. John Blanchard, James Bowden. Is it Bowden or Bowden? Did I just? It's Bowden. It's Bowden. All right, thanks. I didn't clarify that early. Trent Davis, Rod Franz, Ben Pruitt, and Carl Ryan. And I will introduce my friend Margaret Wyatt from the League of Women Voters. She does the rules. Mark.
Okay, here are the rules. We will start with 1-minute opening remarks by the candidate. I will moderate. Oh, yes. Joyce is taller than me. I got to pull it down. I forget. 1-minute opening remarks by the candidates, which I will moderate, and the candidates will alternate answering questions. After that, Joyce will moderate the media panel, who will ask questions. Again, the answers will be 1 minute long. Then I will moderate written questions from the audience. There are tablets or little pads and pencils on the chairs. So if you have questions you would like to answer, you would like answers to from city commission candidates, put them on the pad, raise your hand so that the people who are collecting the questions can see that you have a question, and then they will pick them up. Please have your questions pertain to all the candidates. Candidates will have 1 minute to answer questions, and following that, there will be 1 minute of closing remarks. So we'll do the questions until 8:50. Joyce will do the media questions until 8:10, and I want to introduce the timekeepers who will make sure that the answers are no more than a minute. So, the first 40 seconds, you'll see a green card. The next 20 seconds, you'll see a yellow card. And then at the end, when it's over, you'll see a red card and you hear a little beep and the timekeepers will say stop. So, let's start. Are there any questions? Let's start with the opening remarks. John Blanchard.
Okay, thank you. Good evening. Get away from that. My name is John Blanchard, and I'm running for City Commission to provide experienced leadership and crafted policies focused on long-term economic stability, quality neighborhoods, and an attractive, resilient, and fiscally sustainable community. I believe that city government needs to get back to the basics, which is to provide essential and necessary public services efficiently and effectively. I served on the City Commission from April 2013 to January 2018. I had a perfect attendance record and I was always well prepared. I have the courage of my convictions and I am willing to take on difficult and unpopular tasks. My professional planning experience of over 30 years allows me with the unique ability to fully understand the planning and zoning process and to advocate for fair, effective, and productive land use policies that lead to fiscal sustainability and resiliency. I'd like to thank you all for being here this evening.
James Bowden.
I'm James Bowden. In order to have well-balanced decision-making, we have to have a diversity of perspectives involved. There are many underrepresented groups within this community, including young people. We as the underrepresented have to step up and get involved so that we can be involved in the decision-making process that's happening here in the city. I'm from Salina. I have a farming background. I graduated with a chemistry degree from Bethany College, and I traveled abroad with Peace Corps in Panama. I think with my local knowledge and my global perspective, I can contribute something unique to the Salina City Commission.
Trent Davis.
Ten-year dreams, but only 2-year terms. All candidates have a wish list to conquer from their first day in office, but time moves quickly. Truth is, more issues come to the City Commission than we initiate ourselves. We must allow for diverse opinions to be heard and rational debate to occur. As a commissioner, I am sensitive to both sides of the discussion. For example, the landlord and the tenant, employer and employee, store owner and consumer, hotelier and the traveler, dog owners and dog victims, Mustangs and Cougars, Knights and Coyotes. I offer reason and responsibility to City Commission proceedings. As Salina works hard to remain a premier city in Kansas, I prefer a long-range approach to current issues and offer an educated, positive, constructive, and inclusive method of governance. Thank you.
Rod Franz.
Good evening. I'm Rod Franz. I was Finance Director for the City of Salina from 1996 to 2016. Before moving to Salina, I held a similar position in Arkansas City. I currently volunteer in the Salina Arts and Humanities Commission and Friends of the Local Animal Shelter. Previously, I've been a volunteer Boy Scout leader, merit badge counselor, and Salina South Band booster. As City Commissioner, I will set aside preconceived ideas and listen objectively to all sides of an issue. I will encourage civil conversations. I respect and value citizen input. I'm committed to open and accountable government and quality services that will set Salina apart as a community of choice. It is important to remain positive about Salina and focus on moving forward.
Ben Pruitt.
Hello, I'm Ben Pruitt. I've been a lifelong resident of Salina. I'm married with 4 stepdaughters, ages 18, 16, 15, and 12. I'm a second-generation resident. Both of my grandfathers were Salina businessmen. One grandfather was partners in Gage's Plumbing and Heating. My other grandfather owned and operated Pruitt's East Iron Chapel. My parents also had a small business rented out of the garage called Pruitt's Stained Glass. I've been a route delivery driver for Air Gas for the past 2 years, covering northwest, north central, northeast Kansas, and south central Nebraska. Prior to that, I worked construction in both residential and commercial fields. I'm running for City Commission because I want to show people in the city that anyone can run for office and help change their community. I would like to see younger individuals become more involved and feel like their voices are heard on city matters, making it more transparent. Thank you.
Carl Ryan.
Hi, I'm Carl Ryan. I'm a stockholder and a funeral director for the Ryan Mortuary. We're a 4th-generation family-owned business, one of the few 100-year-old businesses in Salina. There have been 3 generations of my family before me, and I enjoyed 2 generations afterwards. I have degrees in business administration and mortuary science, and I'm a taxpayer, homeowner, and have raised 6 children. Governing for me is being open and fair, communication, partnering, continuing to invest in ourselves, and remembering that even though we're a great city in the center of Kansas, we're a town of only 50,000, and there are things that are beyond the reach of our grasp. I believe we are best when we value and serve people, and I expect the municipal organization to provide the highest quality of service for the citizens of Salina. And if anyone is interested in a longer resume that includes 40 years, I have some pamphlets for you after the meeting.
Joyce will now moderate the medium questions.
We're going to actually start with Charles this time, because I got cut out the last session. So, and John, we'll start with you. Or James, do you want to start? We'll let John start. It'll help me keep track better.
Okay, just over a year ago, the City Commission was found by the Kansas Attorney General's Office to have violated the Kansas Open Records Act, and just about a month ago, the same commission self-reported itself for a violation to the office as well of the Kansas Open Meetings Act. So if you're elected, what is your plan to address the issue of transparency in the city, and what steps would you take to ensure that incidents like this don't happen again?
Okay, yeah, there have been multiple violations, and I think one of the things that's missing is good oversight by the governing body to make sure that those things don't happen. One of the things that I think is really important is the culture of the organization. When you have a culture of secrecy, when you go into executive session 4 times more than any other community in Kansas, and actually about 10 times more often than the average of the 10 largest communities, I think you have what could easily be considered a culture of secrecy. So I think one of the things that we need to do is we need to shift from a mindset of saying, you know, hey, what can we keep to ourselves and what can we keep in the commission family, and what do we need to really fully disclose to the public? Transparency is very important. It maintains public trust, and I think we have to err on the side of letting the people know how the city government operates instead of keeping it in the commission family, as some have suggested in the past. Thank you.
James?
I agree with John that we need to pay attention to what needs to be disclosed and what should be open to the public. I think the current city commission did a good job of responding to the issue. I think something we could do in the future is get more core and coma training so that all of the commissioners are up to date on what should be done in that situation.
Dr. Davis?
Lord knows we try to follow the rules. There are lots of rules, and it's hard to keep track of them all. A lot of times when we're in executive session, we can't tell you what we're discussing, or we wouldn't need to go into executive session, or it wouldn't be privileged information. In putting together the downtown project, there are a lot of contractual details, which by their nature are considered privileged information. We put in into effect some procedures now which we think will significantly reduce the likelihood of there being any further violations. Education is very important. Just because you get elected doesn't mean you automatically know all the rules. This is a learning game the whole time you're serving. But certainly we're operating from the position of wanting to be as open as we can.
Rod?
I think it's very important to be open and accountable, to have open public records, to have open public meetings. I think the commission this time has tried to respond. They now have a section on the agenda whereas the mayor asked the clerk if proper notices be given. That's a nice check. You know, I will say and I've done this before, if I go into an executive session and it's not a proper topic, I will walk out. It is simply that important to me. You know, a number of years ago, the Kansas Press Association conducted a sting operation, and I didn't know we were targeted until well after the fact. But the fact is they came into our office, they asked some of the people up front for some information, and they said they were asked a few questions to determine what specific information it was that they needed, and they got it. And I was extraordinarily proud of that. I didn't have to intervene. It simply happened because we had procedures in place.
I think education, and from what I hear out on the streets, the commission working together, and then just the city manager being truthful about things.
Well, certainly transparency is important, and I think the city commission always has that in mind and is trying to be transparent. We have made mistakes, the staff has made mistakes, but you know, occasionally you have little things. You don't fire people we've all forgot to hit the send button on an email, and you don't fire people for that. So I think that additional training is warranted, and that it's something we need to be mindful and vigilant of all the time.
Leslie?
Should there be more public-private projects to keep the costs down for taxpayers or make the city's dollars go farther? And can you give an example of that would benefit Salina that has not yet been done?
I do think we should have more public-private partnerships. I think those are something the private investors can get behind and invest in the community. Something that has not been done yet is connecting more of the trail system within Salina, making sure that we can connect to the upcoming river project and make that go throughout the city and connect all the residents.
Public-private partnerships are wonderful for saving public dollars on the initial investment, but the cost of maintenance of the facility or project will fall on the city. So we always have to make sure that we have funds to maintain whatever that project is. The area we have the greatest promise and opportunity in Salina is going to be for child care and early childhood education. There's not enough valuable and productive child care. Workers aren't going to come here, or workers will be staying at home because it's less expensive to not work and take care of the kids than to pay child care. So I think that's the next frontier here in Salina, to get a citywide, community-wide collaboration of businesses and employees to further childhood education.
I think public-private partnerships have a dark side, and if I might use an example, if you go to a store with a friend and you see a coat and your friend offers to pay half of it and you buy the coat, but you don't need a coat, you just spend half of that money for nothing. So you need to make sure that when you get offered a public-private partnership, that it's something the community needs. And I would agree with Trent that one of the potentials is childcare and partnering with some of the agencies in that business to try to provide a more affordable and more accessible system, because it is an important ancillary issue to economic development. To have workers, we have to be able to take care of their kids.
The private-public partnerships. I'm a guy that kind of does things on my own, so I don't know really where I stand on that. There's some examples of baseball and so forth like that. If it can benefit this community, then I would look at it. But I'm kind of a standalone guy, so that's how I am.
Well, public-private partnerships, Salina has thrived on those in my experience. It's a community attribute that's the envy of cities all across the state of Kansas. They do come with a dark side. I mean, it's kind of like being on your church board and somebody gives you a beat-up old car. What do you do with that? There are some ideas that can come that just don't make sense, but often they come and they are a surprise. We heard about baseball enterprises, we heard about tennis, and those were both surprises to me this year, but many things can make a lot of sense. I echo the commissioners, the candidates' remarks about child care education. I was both on the early Head Start and Head Start councils when my children were little, on the site council in Oakdale School, and I realized the importance of that early education. So I think there are partnerships, there are avenues out there available to help with the child care initiative for younger age children.
Okay, you know, we talk an awful lot about public-private partnerships, but we talk about them in terms of projects or initiatives or so on. Most communities are talking about public-private partnerships and how they're beginning to deliver services. And that is because municipal budgets are under strain from the enormous amounts of taxation and debt that has been taken on at the state and the federal level has trickled down to the local level. One way that we haven't used private-public partnerships, a while back when we formed the Economic Development Organization, we had a group in here, the International Economic Development Council, and they came in and they suggested a 40-60 private-public or public-private partnership in funding economic development. The city puts in close to $300,000 a year in overlapping funding from the entities, public entities. I think we need to make economic development a public-private partnership.
First of all, I'd like to thank all of you for having the courage to put your name on the ballot and run for city commission. You will make decisions that impact my everyday life and my pocketbook more than any decision at the state level or the national level. So thank you for having the courage to run. My question is, I've been at the radio station for 25 years. Before that, I was born and raised in Salina. Seems to me, at least for the last 25 years, we've been spinning our wheels with our population, 45,000-ish, give or take several thousand either way. What can we do to grow our population and get over the 50,000 hump?
Person by person, piece by piece, we're going to grow the city. Tomorrow we are welcoming officially One Vision to Salina. It's sort of a home run as far as economic development is concerned. But if we realize 500 jobs, that's probably close to 2,000 people. I think we lose more young people than we should. Young people need to go away and explore the world, but when they're ready to raise their families, this should be their community of choice. We're in rural Kansas. We're in the center of the plains. If you look on the internet and TV, the action is in big cities, coast, and every place. So we're not unique in that regard. But I think what you see going on downtown is the beginning of an entertainment and economic engine which will be very attractive to younger people.
You know, it's a tough question. As Trent said, there's been a trend in western Kansas for population decline since at least the 1950s, and part of that is large economic issues, changes in agribusiness, and so on. As far as what we can do about Salina, by the way, has escaped most of that. We've grown very slowly until the last couple of years, and it's kind of leveled out. You know, we really need to focus on attracting jobs to the community that pay well over the median wage. I think we need to focus on figuring out what services attract people to a community and provide those. And I think that the growth will follow from those two items. I think we do need to be careful about not getting too exuberant about growth, because rapid growth brings its own sorts of issues. I don't think we're in immediate danger of that, but we need to keep that on our agenda.
Industry, more industrial jobs for families. One thing for me, having teenage daughters at home, they get bored. And that's stuff for a lot more teenagers to do. There ain't a lot for these kids to do, and other than play Xbox and do what they do inside the home or go out in the streets and get in trouble. And that's one thing I hear from a lot of the community members is stuff for kids.
Well, there have been a number of good comments there. It is a step-by-step process, and we are bucking a little bit of the trend of this part of Kansas and northwestern Kansas. But I think we have put a lot of things in place. The downtown is a big push for that. The medical school is that. Wesleyan's enrollment is rising, and they're giving half-price scholarships to their members of their church. Our UAS schools are full. The K-TEC is putting everybody into jobs. We're making those steps little by little, and that's what's important. I think we could work harder on the retention part. I know that kids need to go out and find their way. I did the same thing, but when my parents offered me a chance to come back to Salina, I realized it was Salina that had nurtured me. It had been my schools, my teachers, my neighborhood, my family, and my YMCA that had brought me back here. And we can do the same.
The reality is that rural flight is a real thing, okay? Small towns are losing their young populations at an alarming rates. So we need to look at more creative ways and say, what are the ways that are right in front of us that we don't choose to go after? I'm going to tell you one thing. From 2010 till now, the Hispanic and Latino population has grown from 10.2% to 12.1%. It's the fastest growing, it's the only growing demographic that we have. We need to be committed as a community to be more welcoming and really go out and maybe recruit legal immigration, okay? We're not going to get to 50,000 probably ever, but we need to be the strongest 46, 47, 48,000 we can possibly be. Since 2010, our population has actually declined 1.8%. So when we talk about this growth, we need to really look at it in realistic terms, and we need to do things that make us more resilient.
We have to consider not only attracting population and or young people, but keeping the young people that we have here. Everybody needs to get an education and get out and explore the world, but we want them to feel welcome in our community as it is. And the two things that young people look for are first jobs, and that's going to bring people in. And the second thing is culture. What kind of engaging community culture can they get involved with? Do they have the ability to form long-lasting relationships and feel prosperous within this community?
What's a current city policy or ordinance that you would like to see either changed or revised?
I'm up on that. I was afraid of that. I did not begin running with any specific agenda in mind. When you say city policy, I will say this. The City Commission every year has a strategic planning meeting. And for the last 100 years or so, they've used a particular format. They changed that this year. And I will have to say that I was always dissatisfied with the old format. I'm not sure I like the new format much better. So I think that is something that we need to address and maybe change our focus in that a little bit. But that will take a discussion among all of the members of the commission.
Current ordinance, my big thing is panhandling. 42 years of my life in this city, and I've never seen panhandling the way it's been the last 5 years. And it's out of control. I think it's a safety factor for the kids that are on the streets of this town. Kids can't even go outside and play because we don't know who these individuals are. They just appear. That goes into homelessness as well. And those people need help. There's mental issues that involve in homelessness, drug addiction. But I think we definitely need to look at our panhandling ordinance and think about what Wichita has done or other surrounding communities.
Well, there's lots of things out there that, to me, that I'm interested in that maybe aren't practical from the staff's viewpoint, vaping and bags and full recycling. But I think probably the thing that comes to mind most is I'd like us to get the automation of our trash hauling put into place. Every time I see those young people running behind those trash trucks, and it strikes me that it's the most dangerous job that we've got in the city, that we need to move on the automation portion of our refuse service.
First of all, it's not really what ordinances I'd like to change, it's what ordinances that the people want to have changed. And so people come to us all the time and ask, hey, can we look at this ordinance and so on. So a few of those that people have come in and talked to about, and I think that we need to give them a fair hearing and listen to them and search the pros and cons out. First is the pit bull ban. We've had a group that's really wanted to have a decision made on that, and they keep being put off, so I think that needs to be taken care of. I think something that could be done without an ordinance and simple resolution, and that is change our meeting times from 4 o'clock in the afternoon to 6 o'clock in the afternoon. And then start there and get more representation, and maybe even change it to 2 meetings a month instead of 4. And I'm running out of time, but I would like to change the charter ordinance and start talking about the change from a commission manager form of government to a council manager mayor form of government that would provide for district and at-large representation so that we more adequately represent people in neighborhoods across the community.
I think we need to be more accessible as a city commission to the people at large and the people that we want to see in the meetings. Having meetings at 4 o'clock does not cater to people that have 9-to-5 jobs, and we need to make sure they're involved in that process. I think if we maximize our social media usage by communicating with them before and after the meeting and some of the results from that meeting, that will also help. I'd also like to encourage the creation of a sustainability and a community resilience board that would focus on issues like plastic bags and other environmental issues within the city.
I like that last idea a lot. It's time for us to identify ourselves as being in favor of prolonging the existence of this planet or not reducing our energy footprint. I think what I would want to do that should be easy is our enforcement of our property maintenance codes. We could beautify a lot of the city and I think increase property values if we just made homeowners adhere to the rules we already have. And if we need to come up with creative ways to give them assistance, we should look into ways of doing that. In our new housing developments, I'd like us to adhere to our policy of connectivity, make sure we have enough parkland, neighborhood parks. Just simple things we just need to, that we already have on the books, we just need to enforce.
Thank you. Leslie? And this will be our last question.
If you were elected and you're serving on the city commission and the commission was approached by a group of citizens who wanted something done for the community that had a lot of support from the community, but it was something that you were personally opposed to, what would you do?
Ben?
Sit down, let's talk. People do what put you in that position, so ultimately that's what you want to do is listen to them, you know, just listen.
Well, for me, I think the proper process would be to bring that to my fellow commissioners. Anything that we can act on, we need to discuss, put on the agenda, have the whole community give its input and, and take our temperature about whether that's an idea that's worth moving forward on. So I appreciate all comments that come to me, and I sound those off of our city manager, but it is really for the commission to discuss before it gets some movement before the community.
I would do the job that was expected of me, and that is if I had a predetermined outcome, I would step away and recuse myself because I have a conflict. It would be the same answer if they came and I was super supportive of it and I somehow would benefit from it personally or financially, I would step away from that conflict of interest. So part of the job of being a city commissioner is to be able to go into a project or a situation and not prejudge it. Get all the facts and then make your determination based on good quality information, input on the project that is reliable, and also through careful deliberation with your fellow commissioners. And hopefully you would come up to a good consensus, and if the project has merit, it will move forward.
I think we need to consider the power of and. What this project is and what my views probably do have some compatibility in some way. So we need to think about how we can both move forward with the project that the people want, but also take into considerations the other side of the issue and why there are other perspectives that are against it.
I think it's kind of ridiculous to think that any of us don't have a personal opinion on just about any topic that comes up. We may have a strong conviction, or it may be, well, I could go either way, but we usually have an opinion. I have already voted on a few occasions for something that was better for the city than what I would have done if I ruled the world. For me, it's city over self. I have a moral line past which I won't go, and I would hope everyone up here does as well. And if I'm not going to vote for something on a moral reason, I would raise that issue. But if we have effective communication, we can reach that common ground, that middle ground. But my job is to listen to both sides and make the best decision.
I think one of the most important characteristics that you have to have as an elected official is to set yourself aside and look at things from a community perspective. Because I'm basically agreeing with everybody else, all right? I mean, you have to step outside of yourself and consider what's best for the community. And I've done that on any number of occasions. I've done things that I personally would probably never have done for myself. The cause is something community wanted. There was obviously lots of interest in it, and overall it appeared that it would be good for the community. I've done that. A recent example is the baseball proposal. I don't play baseball. My kids don't play baseball. I'm not interested in baseball. But clearly, it's a community need that a lot of people have a lot of interest in, and I think it will be good for the community in the end. So I am inclined to support that proposal.
Thank you. I want to thank our media panelists, because now we're going to launch into the fun audience questions. Are you ready, Ms. Margaret? All right.
I believe Carl is first.
Working with the county commission, how would you move forward with the Expo Center, project equestrian improvements, and river development?
Well, we've engaged in some good conversations with the county in the last year, and I'm glad we moved forward from that. It wasn't that long ago we were in court with them over the Boundary Road issues, so I'm glad that we have two willing commissions that are willing to speak about things now. My only interest in the negotiation we have for the Expo lease is just aesthetic related, and I would like what they do over there to both blend in with the area that the river will encompass, and also see them do it in a reasonably timely manner so that the river work in that area could be 5 years, 7 years out, but that the improvements that they're proposing come in a reasonably short amount of time, not over a 30-year period.
Well, the Expo Center, first of all, I'd like to thank Bob Richardson, the chairman and county commissioner, for being here. I think we got a good county commission. I went off the board in January of 2018, and I think it was a time where 5 city commissioners, 5 county commissioners, all were able to get along. I think that we didn't agree on everything, but we still got along well. And my feeling on the Expo Center itself is that 85% of the county is the city. So it's the same people and the same dollars for the most part. I think we need to find a solution that works for both entities, recognizing that the county has budget issues too. They have very serious challenges. We have challenges. We have a criminal justice center that we're really needing to take a serious look at. So there are serious items on the table that have serious budget implications. I don't want to make them do things that if the fair is dead 5 years from now, that we feel like we got to hold on to something because we put $6 million into it.
I'm coming from a rural background, and on a state level, we're losing attendance to the state fair, and so that's something that concerns me. I'm really glad that Salina has an equestrian show that's chosen us as their primary venue. I think that we need to take that into consideration because that's going to bring a lot of people here. And we also need to consider that the collaboration between TPEC and the county is possible and could be successful.
I had a lot to learn coming from a city background about what you do in all these barns and stables and everything. But I've been educated, and the Expo Center not only brings in outside visitors, But those buildings are used a lot for social events from people here in town. So it is a vital part of our community. We do want it to fit in with the river, which it's not going to be hard to do. I think we're actually closer than what you might expect. When you have two groups with legal representation and administration, and they have to meet and get together and discuss the ideas and meet again, it takes time. I guess you could lock the 10 of us in a room, tell us we couldn't come out until we had an agreement, and if that wasn't breaking any rules, we could probably do it that way. I'll ask the chair after the meeting.
You know, I think we need to recognize that the city and county, even though we occupy the same building, we do have different viewpoints. We take a different perspective on things, and one is the issue of aesthetics versus function at the Expo Center. This, as I understand, the primary difference now has to do with whether or not the existing utilities get buried as a part of the project or not, and it has to do with how long it's going to take to construct the facility. I think they are pretty much on the same page with respect to the length of the lease. And my take on that, you know, is, and maybe I shouldn't do this, but I'll throw it out there, is I'm perfectly willing to have the city bury the utilities if we want that component to be included in the project, if Saline County will agree to get everything built within a 3-year period or so instead of dragging it out over a long period of time. I think that's a fair trade.
I'm going to agree with what James said. One thing about the equestrian event coming up, it's pretty huge, and when you look at the track record where it comes from and how it's got to here, there's a lot of people from worldwide that's going to come to this thing. This thing's huge. It can be a good economic impact to the community, and hopefully it continues around for a long time. As far as the city and the county relationship goes, I'd like to see something come along. I don't really pay much attention to the county because I'm in the city, so hopefully something can come together.
Next question. Now that we have spent over a year and millions of taxpayer dollars renovating the downtown, what is your plan to bring Salina alive?
Well, the plan to bring Salina alive. I assume that you're saying, how do we get people here? Well, the field house is supposed to do that, but it's actually underperforming bringing people in. We're looking at the Salina Downtown Inc. is supposed to provide entertainment, maintenance, and enforcement, security. So they're pretty much going to be working on that. I think that we've got a lot of things around the community that people are interested in, so we need to get them focused into coming downtown. Hopefully we can educate people on the parking and everything else so they're not intimidated. But we have to realize that people are going to have to drive down here, so they need to know what's available, where it is, and how we do that. We need to do a much better job marketing that field house, because that is supposed to be the catalyst and the economic driver, and it really has been underperforming, so I think if we give it a boost, then we're going to need that.
I think what's going to keep our downtown vibrant is community culture, and if we don't have the culture, we're not going to be able to sustain the downtown. We have these nice things, and we have to get out there and dedicate ourselves to supporting them. One of the things that I really think brings people downtown is the arts and humanities. When you get bands out there and artists and things that create that culture, people want to be down there, and I think that's what we need to do.
Heard two excellent ideas, and you have to understand that not many people would probably willingly open a new business during the time the street in front of their business was torn up. So I'm expecting some pent-up business to start appearing soon. Anyone who wants an opportunity to develop arts, entertainment, restaurant, businesses, this is the time. Downtown is right. We're going to increase the housing, so there'll be more people on the street. Field house should grow over time. The alley is obviously going to bring in tournaments and business. So this should actually be a nice place. It's not going to just convert overnight to 10,000 people on the sidewalk.
It's going to take time. I hear from a lot of people who go to the field house to see grandkids and so on, and it is, and I'm not sure if underperforming is the right word. It may not yet be meeting expectations, but we still have time. With regard to the millions spent, I would have to point out that a good part of that money was put underground in utility lines that were close to 100 years old, and it was a high time that they be replaced, whether or not in conjunction with this project or not. I think we need to focus on arts and entertainment, as I think it was James talked about the arts downtown. You know, the Stiefel Theater is an absolute anchor for the downtown area. I ran across a guy in Overland Park who not only knew about the Stiefel, he knew about Martinelli's, and that was his image of Salina. So, you know, it can be a real benefit to the community in terms of attracting people from outside the community to participate in our culture.
I would definitely say live music events, arts festivals. We got the car show in the summertime, but just anything that we can get people to come out downtown and hang out and have fun.
Well, somebody who grew up a block and a half from here and has lived his whole life in this area, and I've been thrilled to see what's going on downtown. For the life of me, I think I'm already seeing the changes there. I think the mayor's right that nobody's going to get too serious about investment while the sidewalks are torn up in front, but I think the progress is already evident, and there's going to be real growth there. We have the Lee buildings that'll come online in a year, quite a number, 50 in the first phase, over 100 residential units there. We've done all the right things to kickstart the downtown, and I think it's obvious that it will grow.
Okay. All of you will probably agree that affordable housing is important. But how does approving $250,000 housing developments time and time again create affordable housing? Jane?
I think if we're going to use special assessments to invest in housing, we have to invest according to our housing plan that we already have on the books. And right now, the housing on the edge of town is not affordable for young people. It's not affordable for most people in Salina. And we need to start thinking about what people can afford. Most people in this town don't have jobs that will support even a $100,000 house. So we have to be thinking about those people and where the investment goes in this community.
Housing becomes affordable in proportion to how much money you make. If your education will not ready you for a job that makes a salary of a certain type, then your housing choices are going to be limited. Having said that, through no fault of their own, there are some people who are not going to make certain amounts of money. We have to encourage our builders to build different types of housing that can be built at lower prices. We don't have the same incentives for downtown that we'd have for Greenfield. But remember also, most of these houses that are being built are being sold. There are people moving to Salina who can't afford these houses. I think we may have an income disparity in Salina. But if we were to build 10 $1 million homes, that's great, because that means there are probably 10 people who brought new businesses into town. Not that we have to subsidize those, but $250,000 is not what it used to be.
I think affordable housing has become a code word for something besides price point. I just happened to look at the housing market in Salina today on Realtor.com. There's 270 houses available. 120 of them list for less than $100,000. 60 list from 100 to 150. 39 from 150 to 200, and the rest are higher than that. So 67% of the houses on the market in Salina are available for less than $150,000. I think that affordable housing has come to mean a code word, meaning the house I want, the size I want, with the fixtures and furnishings I want, in the neighborhood I want. You know, a lot of things come together, and unfortunately, when you bring those things together, very often the price point does this. So I think we need to be very careful about the way we approach this problem. Last question, I'm out of time, but rentals play a role too.
This is a deal I struggle with, because I'll be honest, I really haven't paid much attention to it. I've been looking at other issues in the city, and there is a hole in the middle, and hopefully we can come to an agreement on that and get something settled, but I really haven't got anything on that.
Well, I think the real perspective should be that we are looking for a well-rounded housing market, that we have inventory all up and down the spectrum. And I think that the most traditional form of home ownership, you buy where you can afford and you move up as your life progresses. I've lived in 4 different houses. I downsized to the one I'm in. I'm ready to look for something smaller probably. So when people move up, that creates openings below them. It's a testament to the higher housing market now, that it sells as fast as we can make it. So we really need to continue to support that area of housing. And then, like everything else in Salina and the kind of community we are, we're going to have to pick and choose our opportunities to increase housing in the other categories. And I'll finish.
That's a great question, and the quick answer is it doesn't, okay? Affordable housing is a function of income. And it's a function of what your income is in your community and what the cost of living and the cost of housing is. So when we say affordability, it's affordable to somebody, well, of course. But what we're talking about is that we have wages that are, Salina County is 37th in the state. We're in the low, we're in the, not even in the top 1/3 of incomes. The answer to this question is the same as the one before it. If you want, people need to have disposable income, and they have to have incomes that they can go downtown and spend money. They need to have income that they can affordable, safe housing. Our rents went from $5.99 to $7.39 for gross rent, and we have over 50% of the people in this community that rent that spend more than 50% of their income on their housing expenses. If we want affordable housing, we need to get wages up.
Did you answer this? Oh, yeah, you started, James, sorry. Okay, my next question.
Push it back.
I was going to give you another chance. Okay, this question goes first to Trent Davis. What will you do to reduce Salina's carbon footprint?
This would probably be what I could do if I ruled the world. I would, I think the easiest thing is to take advantage of the things that we have here free of charge, which is sunlight and wind. And I like what California did, which is, I don't know how long it's going to stay on the books, but requiring new housing to have solar panels. There's a lot of talk about, well, why should we be the first to do that? At some point, we're going to have to be bold and innovative and be the first. And we were the first to get clean indoor air in our restaurants. There's no reason why we can't be the first to have the majority of our power come from really free sources. But that'll take a true public-private partnership and community effort. That's what we want our identity to be.
Small pieces. The first thing we can do is get our recycling program in order. Currently, it is split between a curbside single source pickup and a recycling center. The curbside program, I think, only serves about 600 households. We need to decide which we're going to do. Personally, I like curbside, but I know it has lots of issues. so I'm willing to listen to anything, but we need to get off the knife's edge and decide which way we're going to go. And if we go to a recycling center, we need to do something to make sure that's encouraged to be used. The other thing I would say is I was disappointed in the plastic bag ban. While it may have been the right thing to do, I think we should have stepped forward and done something else by offering a carrot to encourage people to use reusable bags, even if we didn't require stores to provide reusable bags.
I would agree with what Rod Friend said.
Yes, Rod, you had a good statement. And I would agree, there are things that we can pick and choose, but in terms of making a statement, you got to be careful about that because, again, if you overextend, you're going to be looking at raising a mill levy to subsidize something that is just making a statement to the community. So you have to be very cautious about what you want to overextend to do.
Sorry, I want to get my time right. We talk a lot about recycling and plastic bag bans, but I think we're tripping over dollars, picking up pennies. I mean, the real thing is since 1965, this community has grown land area-wise almost 3 times its size. That's 200% growth with a 9.1 population increase. If you really want to make a bang and lower your carbon footprint, or however you want to put it, build inside the town, infill and redevelopment. Let's quit building new streets in new suburbs out in green fields that we have fewer and fewer people that are around to support and to maintain. Our tax budgets in the future are going to explode because we have so much. We have 725 lane miles of street. We have probably $250 in deferred maintenance on street, water, and sewer lines. We have $220 of overlapping debt. We're in debt nearly $500 million.
I'd like to go back to my sustainability and community resilience board. Between recycling, energy independence, plastic bags, there's a multitude of issues we have to deal with. And that's something that advisory board can take into consideration. But what we really need to consider is that we can't expect somebody else to tell us how to reduce our carbon footprint. We have to make that personal choice to do it ourselves. And so we need to stop taking plastic bags from Dillon's, even though they offer them. We need to reduce our amount of driving, even though we can go clear across the state if we want to. It's a personal choice.
Okay, Rod Friends will start this question. Salina has many aging residential neighborhoods. How can the city support revitalizing them?
I think that we do have some programs in place that do that. There's a tax rebate program that's effective in some neighborhoods. The Salina Lives plan identifies a couple of things that we might consider following. One of those is trying to identify, again, small areas in neighborhoods that are needy, I guess is the best way to say it, that have issues with housing, aging, and target those for improvement. We have some private nonprofits that are getting into this. CHOTA comes to mind. North Salina Community Development, I know, is a neighborhood agency that is working in this way. So I think this is an area where public-private partnerships are, again, maybe have some potential.
Yeah, we definitely have some aging neighborhoods, some areas that haven't been touched probably in 40 years. Yeah, I would say some nonprofits or public-private as well for that.
Well, I would echo the public-private ideas, and I would also look to enforcement of some of the codes we have for cleaning up some of the neighborhoods where we are rebuilding a number of the streets, trying to get into as many residential areas as possible. I think that has a direct impact on people's feelings about the homes that they live in. I think we can look to the codes to change some things. Residential areas don't usually allow apartment complexes in them. We could reduce or expand the footprint that's allowed on a certain piece of property, allow people that want to go in to revitalize to build deeper and higher, and therefore increase density. So I think things like that could incentivize people to go into older and take over older homes and improve them.
We've already done some of the things that it takes to strengthen those neighborhoods. We just need to commit to them. We have a comprehensive plan that was passed in 2010 that said we need to prioritize infill and redevelopment. Yet what do? We continue to incentivize greenfield sprawl. It makes no sense whatsoever. Some people on the commission and elsewhere benefit financially extremely well from these things. They don't deal with their conflicts of interest very well, and it's hard as a governing body to get anything done when you're dealing with that kind of environment. But if we stop incentivizing the easy projects on greenfield development, we can start to bring more people back into the city core. We have a land bank, we have a property maintenance code, we have all the pieces we need to help restore these core communities that millennials and empty nesters want to live in. And we just need to commit ourselves to doing it and get the job done.
We need to create community improvement districts that incentivize improving the existing structures that are there. I think if we take full blocks so that when we invest in these communities, the value comes up as a whole, not just one house and you still have a house that is falling apart next to you. I think it's important to invest in the community as a whole. I also think it goes back to getting jobs here, getting people wages that they deserve so that they can afford to invest in these houses.
Well, I got to go last on this. Next to last. When you rebuild a neighborhood, you have to decide if you are rebuilding it for the current resident to remain there, or if you are rebuilding it to make it more valuable to bring in someone else who's going to buy a house that's at a higher price. Big cities, the term obviously is gentrification. We have to decide if that's what's going to happen to our neighborhoods, or are we going to try to get current residents to shift from being renters to owners. If so, they're going to need education on how to maintain a house, the property, maintenance codes, to come in and do our houses. We're going to have to go block by block, probably moving out from the downtown out to the center. But there has to be a profit for builders and rehab folks, and that takes a lot of money. So it's not going to be a cheap process, but we have to determine what our purpose is first. Who are we trying to move in?
Should marijuana be decriminalized? Start with that.
You sure you want to go with me first? Man, that's a tough one. Drugs is a real big thing to me in this community. I think drugs in this community are at an all-time high. I don't think so, no.
Well, at this time, I'd say no, because it's one of those transitional things, and if you just legalize it, I think all of the systems that deal with that would be overwhelmed. So we're going to have to take an approach to that in a step-by-step basis. Like we're seeing in many parts of the country, there's a lot of pressure on Kansas because we've got Colorado right next door to us, but we're still going to have to move towards medical marijuana and other steps before we can legalize.
Well, that's a question for Senator Harvey and the Kansas legislature. be sure that whoever wrote that question, go and lobby him. I will, let me though, so I'm not really not gonna weigh in on that. I think there are, I hear that people for tax purposes want it or whatever, but I'd be really interested in looking at what pediatricians and school board people and law enforcement and everything, what the implications may be before I just give a off-the-cuff answer to something like that. I'm really pleased, though, that hemp is legalized because I think we need to really exploit that from an agricultural perspective. And I think that we could do really great things. And also to give a plug to perennial agriculture, I think the Land Institute is something everybody ought to know about here. And I think it's something that we need to support as a community.
Thanks for the shout out, John. I think if you look at the trends nationally, it is for legalization. I think what we need to consider is how many people are in our criminal justice system because of minor drug possession and other issues like that. So if we can keep them out of the criminal justice system by decriminalizing, I think that's a good idea.
Well, the me of 30 years ago would never believe what's getting ready to come out of my mouth. But if you look at what our criminal justice systems have done, we have functionally decriminalized simple possession of small amounts anyway. And to continue to clog the court systems for something which we have absolutely no chance of turning around, I think is a big waste of money and resources. I would still want to have limits on amounts intent to distribute. There's a difference between legalizing and decriminalizing. And those technical nuances, I'd be interested in discussing. I am worried about that because I agree it's going to happen at the state, it won't happen locally. But I'm certainly in a position where at this ripe old age of 66, I could support that.
I gave Trent my script, so you can pay me later. There is a difference between legalization and decriminalization, and it is absolutely true, I think, that if we continue to focus, and we may have stopped focusing, I don't know, on small amounts, we're going to continue to clog the legal system up. We're going to increase the need for more facilities to incarcerate people, which we're dealing with locally at the county level right now. So I think there is at least some argument for that. Now, that being said, I don't have enough good information for me to really have an informed opinion. These are things I've just kind of picked up from the news media. I know people who are in the drug abuse counseling business who absolutely believe that it's a gateway drug to worse drugs. I know people in the counseling business who say it's not. So, I'm juggling here. So I don't really know. But I do agree with what Dr. Davis said.
Okay, Carl Ryan will be first on this. What is your position on allowing developers to avoid making payments on special assessments by keeping vacant lots in development zoned as agricultural use?
Well, that is an exception that the law allows, and the law, as long as the law allows it, I'm fine with that. I don't think that's anything that we, at our level, can legislate. The exception for agricultural, for the agricultural exception is in the law, and I think that's beyond our reach to administer. I think on the idea of specials and just dealing with development all the way across the board, they have a certain economic model that they work off of, which includes using ag exceptions, but also specials. They've been building their business around that model. If we're going to change it, we have to be very cautious not to pull the rug out from under them. If we're going to change assessment policy, it's something that needs to be backed off gradually, or other changes that affect their model, or we'll throw it into chaos just as we have, and there'll be no lots just as early.
Well, I don't gain financially from real estate developers, so my answer is considerably different. I would be upset if I were all of you out there paying property tax. When you get a new lot put on it with streets and sewers and everything else, and you say, and it's a quarter of an acre, and you're saying that you're using it for agriculture because it's a loophole you can exploit, I think it's a fraud, and it really is something where they're making you subsidize their profits. They pay $4 a year for a $36,000 lot. They ought to be paying at least $750 a year for it. I don't have a problem with saying if we're going to do special assessments and we're going to have a development agreement, let's make sure that the developer agrees to pay the vacant lot fee in order to get the special assessments.
I think once the land is platted, it should have a timeline on when it should become taxed as a vacant lot. If these lands are actually being used for agriculture, then we need to continue letting them use them for agriculture. But again, if the developer's intention is to develop that land and plat it out, then there should be a timeline on when it should convert to a vacant lot tax.
This was the policy that needed to be revised or looked at, but I was afraid to mention that loud, but since it's come back to haunt us anyway. The special assessment system is not used in most states. It's an ingrown part of how housing in Kansas is financed. Some of that problem, a lot of that problem will have to be handled at the banking level, where the amount of loan percentage that will be given to the builders is established. I think it's reasonable to certainly convert the ag to a vacant lot, in that the intent of that land, certainly with streets and utilities in, is to put a house, and someone came the next day and said, I want to build a house, that lot would be ready to be used. So I think that's a reasonable trade-off.
Can you repeat the question, please? Carefully.
I set it aside, and now I am.
Okay, I will try anyway. I believe that the question conflates two issues. That is, when a developer develops lots and there are services provided to those lots, and those lots are not...
I found it.
Oh, okay.
What is your position on allowing developers to avoid making payments on special assessments by keeping vacant lots and development zoned as agricultural use?
Okay, it conflates two issues. And I'm not going to get through this in a minute. But when there's a development and there are lots platted and services provided, the special assessments apply. There is no ag deferral for special assessments in that situation. However, if the lots are vacant and they appear to be used for agricultural, the county appraiser will appraise them for regular tax purposes as ag use. The special assessment deferral applies to property that is within a benefit district that is not yet subdivided into lots, but is thought to benefit from improvements to that district. And in that case, until it is subdivided, it will not pay specials for either the time it's subdivided or 15 years. So there's actually two issues working there that have been conflated in the question.
I will agree with John Blanchard.
I think this is our last question we have time for, and John will start. Northwest Arkansas is growing because of Walmart. Is there some business we can get to help Salina grow?
That's outside of my pay grade. I'm a planner, I'm a retail specialist. I think what we can do, we haven't talked about taxes and water fees. I think what we can do to be attractive to a large corporation is we need to keep our taxes down. We need to keep our fees down. Our water fees have gone up over 48%. Our sewer fees have gone up over 87%. The combined water and sewer fees over the past 10 years have gone up 65%. That is not attractive to any business and really any resident that wants to move here. Our property taxes over the last 2 years have gone up 17%. The 5 years prior to it, it went up 9.1%. We need to get our taxes and our water fees under control, or nobody's gonna wanna move their business here. So, hope that's helpful.
I'm not sure we should focus on getting businesses here, but investing in the businesses that we have here and helping them to expand into something that can employ more people in this town. I think we've got a lot of resources between Haska, K-State Extension, the Land Institute, all of which I would love to see expand, and I think they have the potential to do it as long as we can support them.
I would agree that we should focus on growing our smaller businesses into bigger businesses. Our bigger businesses were once smaller businesses. We're in the Central Plains. Not many people are going to move here for the water. They move here for space, wind, sun, transportation, a long runway, interstates, and if they ever come to visit, to be honest with you, the busiest, nicest, most sophisticated small city in the Great Plains. So we need to attract those folks who would naturally gravitate towards what we already have and encourage them and grow those businesses.
I think we ought to focus on ourselves instead of comparing ourselves to others. Let's play to our assets, develop our possibilities. And I go back to my original question, how much growth, how fast growth is too much? And I think a modest growth rate would be nice. I think we need to continue to focus on playing to Salina's assets and trying to recruit businesses that benefit from that. I think we do need to, as Trent and James both said, to focus on growing our existing businesses. And I think we need to provide services that people want.
I'd like to focus on growing our existing businesses and also ag-based. We got a lot of ground around here, so focus on them.
Well, I don't think we should be exclusive about anything. Certainly trying to grow those businesses that are here already and assist them makes perfect sense. But we've organized an EDO that is having some success at telling our story. And as Mayor Trent said, we have our certain group of assets here. Certainly what we charge in the way of taxes and water fees and all of those things across the board, we're in line with all of our peer cities in the same region. So we just have to tell our story a little better, and I think that the EDO is well organized to do that for us.
Joyce will now moderate the closing remarks.
James, we're going to start with you. Oh, I'm waiting for a lid.
I think there's going to be a lot of projects that we have to encounter on the city commission, and I think the most important part of solving those problems is coming at it as a team and as a community and looking for solutions that benefit the whole rather than any one part of the community. So I would like to be one of those team players, and I encourage you to vote for me for city commission.
The City Commission is the interface between the citizens of Salina and the city government and its civil servants. The Commission measures the public sentiment as we decide who this community is, what it stands for, and how we get to where we want to end up. Through open-minded debate and weighing the best options for our long-term social safety and financial health, good decisions will be made. Through reason and responsible government, I can help Salina on its current journey. I'm Trent Davis, and I'd appreciate your vote from today until November 5th. Advance voting has started. Thank you.
I believe I have the qualifications to be an effective city commissioner for you based on my experience, education, and outlook. When I assumed the position of finance director in 1996, the property tax levy was 27.5 mils. When I retired in 2016, it was 27.3 mils. Increased base property valuations helped, but did keep pace with inflation, with 20 years of inflationary pressure. During my tenure, the city expanded street maintenance substantially and partnered with OCCK on CityGo, built Kenwood Cove, and developed a major soccer complex. This was due to hard work of a dedicated staff team, of which I was a key member, and sound policy direction from the City Commission. I value transparency in government, citizen engagement, and quality services. I care about Salina now and about its future, and would appreciate your vote on November 5th, or tomorrow.
If elected, I'll look forward to working with other commissioners on solving issues in Salina. We have a budget issue in Salina we need to fix, and we need to work on getting better paying jobs and ensure these employees are offered benefits. I would also like to work on a city ordinance for panhandling and work to clean up the streets of Salina. We need to focus on repairing and maintaining what we have in these parks as far as equipment, walking trails, and tennis courts, and we need to focus on street repairs in residential neighborhoods. Additionally, I would be interested in districting the city so we have more widespread representation of people. I would support moving city commission meetings to 6 p.m. to allow more working individuals to attend the meetings and make the city government more transparent to the community. If it means we have to have a meeting on a Saturday to get people to attend a hot topic, then that's what we need to do. But we need community involvement and input. We need accountability and to cut overspending. I would appreciate your vote on November 5th. Thank you.
Valuing citizens is good governance. I want Salina to be a healthy, safe, and vibrant community. A Salina that welcomes everyone and attracts new people to a new generation. I'm focused on Salina's unique civic personality, and I represent fair and balanced reasoning toward solving problems. I will collaborate without dominating, and I will continue to exercise responsible financial planning. Salina should see herself as a regional city of choice, and to be this, we need to offer experiences and amenities that attract new people to Salina without needlessly raising taxes. Knowing our limitations and continuing to invest in ourselves will bring success. Thank you to both the chamber and to the League of Women Voters. Appreciate being here.
Thank you all for being here this evening. If elected, I pledge to provide the high level of public service that Salina residents deserve and know they can expect from me. I will show up to every meeting well prepared and ready to work for the people I serve. I truly believe that successful community elect leaders who place the public interest above their own personal financial gain and other special interests. With the decline of the Salina Journal, sorry Charles, as the watchdog over government, it is critical now more than ever that we elect ethical individuals with the ability to steer clear of conflicts of interest in order to preserve the public trust, provide true transparency, and guarantee an equal opportunity for all. I honor the confidence and trust that you have placed in me in the past, and I would appreciate your vote on November 5th. Thank you.
Thank you.
Election day is November 5th. Early voting has begun at the county clerk's office. Citizens in the city of Salina are voting on the Salina City Commission, USD 305 school board members, Central Kansas Extension District Number 3 board members, and the constitutional amendment in regard to the census. Early voting is going on right now in the Saline County Clerk's Office, 300 West Ash Street, room 215, Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. from now until November 1st. Saturday, November 2nd from 10 to 2, Monday, November 4th from 8 a.m. to noon. Voters can request a ballot by mail from now until October 29th. The League and the Chamber have been very pleased to co-host this candidate forum, and we want to thank the candidates for coming and sharing their views.